Hello there, hope you're feeling fine. On today's African Vibes with Princess Aquia, I bring you Q&A from Amma the movie, which was screened at the BFI. It was a great movie, and I had a chat to some people too.
Floppy disk age. It's been reversioned for the digital age. And we're going to discuss the film and the experiences of, we have two guests here, and I would like to introduce them to you. Firstly, Georgina Ackerman, who you saw looking as she looked many decades ago. Georgina is of South African heritage. She plays Amma, the title role. Since this film, or after this film, she appeared in a number of films, including, I would add, Rage. We did a film called Rage, right? By Newton Adwaka. I don't know if anybody has seen that film. It came out in 2000. But since then, she's also developed a sort of parallel career, linking, I think, dramatic art and therapy. She's working as a therapist, a mentor, and a coach, and she's very much involved with personal development, right? So we all need some of that. Secondly, welcoming here my good friend, colleague, Kwesi Owusu. Producer, co-producer, screenwriter, co-director. He doesn't want to sit next to me because he's terrified of, whatever. The Zulu man. Kwesi was born in Sekondi, Ghana, and by way of one or two other places, he arrived in London, and most people would know him publicly from his work with Africa Dawn, very important performance group of the 1980s to the present. They're all mostly still here. He was also, as has been mentioned, co-owner of the Electric Cinema on Portobello Road in West London, which he owned and ran for a number of years. But I need to recognize Kwesi and his diversity, and I'll do it very short because we don't have a lot of time. And Wikipedia will tell you probably more than I know. His significance as a leading scholar in the field of culture and arts, with publications such as, and we go back to the 1980s, 1986. Publication called The Struggle for Black Arts in Britain. Then he co-wrote with Jacob Ross in 1987. That one was 1986. This is 1987. A publication called Behind the Masquerade. You saw some scenes from the carnival here, and it was looking at the Notting Hill Carnival and that tradition. He also published two important anthologies, and some of us here are students and interested in Black arts and the historiography and context of this film. I would point you to Storms of the Heart, an anthology of Black arts and culture which was published in 1988, and another anthology, Black British Culture and Society, in 2000. So, very substantial contribution to our knowledge and our memory, as it were. He began the millennium in Ghana as head of the African Initiative for the Jubilee 2000 movement or coalition, which was a global campaign for debt cancellation, which yielded, I think, some positive results. Probably not the whole thing, but some positive results for those referred to as the poorest countries in the world. You know the jargon. But however, in Ghana, he was also involved with producing films, which his company Creative Storm he ran or co-ran or participated in a very important festival, film festival, Environmental Film Festival of Accra. And he was also producing music concerts with the High Vibes Music Festival. Like many of us, he's back here in London and very much involved with bringing this film to us again, but also a podcast taking the name of African Dawn and looking at African stories in a very unique way. Kwesi Owusu. It's also important to acknowledge, as we've already done before, the co-director, Kwate Nyowu, who is in Accra at this moment, and we are in touch with him, and he is in touch with us, no doubt. I also, before we start the conversation, want to acknowledge maybe one or two people in the audience who may have been involved in the production. I see Rui Ahmed here, our wardrobe person, yes. And, there may be one or two others if I haven't recognized you. Some of us are still alive. We recognize those who have passed on, very importantly. We hope their journey will be easy and rewarding. Now, this film is very much a film of the 1980s. It came out in 91, but it's a film of the 80s, particularly the first 10 years of Channel 4. Channel 4, which exists today, the first 10 years, 1982 to 1992, were very important years. Because, of course, Channel 4 made a very big impact on the television and film landscape in Britain, and Europe, in fact. It also helped to bring to the fore what is recognized as the Black independent film movement in this country. So, of course, AMA is a product of that. I would also suggest that AMA is also a product of African cinema in its global context. And its part, or its moment, marked the emergence of a new generation of filmmakers who had come after the pioneers, the Sembezi, etc., right? And that generation that's referred to as the pioneers of African cinema, we have a new generation, and I want to suggest that Kwesi Owusu and others, contemporaries, are part of that movement. In Ghana, if you don't know, films were being made. Kwa Ansa made Heritage Africa in 1989, a couple of years before this film. But of course, and that won a prize at FESPACO. We'll talk about FESPACO a little bit because that's some part of your story as well. Right? Kwa Ansa won the first prize at FESPACO in 1989. But of course, filmmaking in Ghana was more or less going through what we call a quiet moment. It was still a few years before Nollywood, the Nollywood phenomenon, would come into full impact, its full presence. But however, if we think about that moment in 1992, a film by Kenneth Enubue called Living in Bondage signaled, as the historians will tell you, the beginning of Nollywood. So AMA comes at a very important watershed, not only in terms of, you might say, Black filmmaking in Britain, but I want to suggest African cinema as well. So I want to start with Georgina. You've seen the film a few times, this remake. And what does it remind you of? What memories does it bring back to you? I know you would say that.
Because it was so long ago.
What are your impressions of it now then? Let's start with what are your impressions of it now?
Well, this is the second time I've seen it. Everybody can all hear me. Well, it's the second time I've seen this film for me.
Second time meaning that you saw it was premiered in New York, the New York Film Festival, and Georgina was present at that screening. That's what she's referring to.
So you can all imagine how much happens at once. Of course, I'm reliving my youth, and this is shocking to see your face magnified on the screen. So as it is now, so that was a lot. But also what came up for me was just like the whole casting experience as well. And I remember when Crazy came into my drama school at the time, there was a big buzz.
You were drama school?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
I know that.
Yes.
Which drama school
I
was it?
went to Anna Shear.
Anna Shear, well, a very famous drama school for children in particular,
That's
right? Yes. Yeah, particularly children.
That's
Black,
right.
you know, well, a
Yes.
mixed
So it was
group.
for, it was for like working class,
Yes.
Irish, black children at the time, because of course the film industry was permeated with white middle class children that were predominantly being cast. So it was a really big deal. I remember when Kwesi came, because we knew it was a black production, and we knew that it was an African production, and we knew it was going to be quite different to anything that any of us had ever done before. So that it just felt quite exciting. So those kind of memories came back to me really, and also that it was going to be a feature film. So it was
Kwesi,
quite
what drew
exciting.
you to her as to select her?
What I
for the
really
role?
want to ask her was the computer scene. What was going on in your head? Because it was like you set it up and you had a telepathic kind of relationship with your mother. You were, what is this? And then your mother answers. What was going on in your mind in terms of that whole interaction?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to kind of convey that there was a close relationship with Amma and her mother, and that the spiritual experience she was having, she was already well versed with it, she was well ahead of everybody else. But there was those moments where her mother was completely aware of Amma's spirituality. And so it was trying to convey that Mum was aware that there was this transparency between them.
So you identified with the character in a, let's say, personal way.
Yeah.
You drew on that.
Yeah, they had a very strong relationship
Well,
in the film.
What I found really interesting was that we found you in your innocence. I mean, you know, director writes all this magical thing, you know, I read a bit of whatever. But for you, clearly, coming into a code, was it frightening or was it like, oh my God, what is this? I'm not going to say anything. What was going on in your head?
No, I wasn't frightened.
It was fine.
No, I wasn't frightened because my memories of being on the set was I was really well taken care of, and there was a real family atmosphere. So when I was shooting that scene, I obviously knew what was going to happen, but also I just wanted to make sure that I conveyed the right emotions and kind of created some sense of mystery. And
Because when
easy
we,
in that
when,
moment.
when we took you to the forest,
Yeah.
obviously we have to create an African forest out of Bearwood Lake. What was your impression? We didn't put a profile, not just saw it in there. And
I was thinking
but
Merlin.
she bought
What
it.
was going on? Like, what's going on?
So what's it?
I thought this is an African film. That was sort of kind of like looking at this sort of like Merlin. I was like, okay, let's continue with this level of fantasy. So it was fun and it was different, and I liked the way that it was just merging with like the modern and fantasy. I really enjoyed that.
Let's see.
And then you had your
He's taking over. This is a Ghana man for you. You know. Continue, sir.
last one.
Yes, okay.
And you had your thing there, you still have it. And in those days, it was like a bit unusual. But we wanted to keep you as you were, not kind of the way you were. And there were other things that you probably didn't realize we kept. But
So you're going to share now, right?
No.
All those things were in front of everybody.
no, but it was a real transformation. And I remember the first time we actually entered that particular forest. You probably don't remember. You ran out of
As
the
a baby.
forest. She ran out, and we had to go and bring her back. Because obviously, it was a complete experience for you, wasn't it?
Firstly, what in terms of we're talking about casting, what was your casting strategy? Because of course, the cast is made up of a very, let's say, international Pan-African cast of characters, actors, very some known, more well known. What was your casting strategy, and could you just say something about the key?
I must say, it was very, very difficult to find Amma. But, and your school wasn't the only school we went to. to be honest with you, we saw so many different people, different walks of life. People brought their children, grandchildren, you name it. Oh, wait here, perfect. And then we go through and no. And then, even Ghana, there were suggestions with, we get pictures and, based on videos or videos. And the moment we saw Ama, people here.
He still called me Amma, guys. Soon as I met everybody, it's like Amma. That was a character play. Yeah.
We knew that there was some element there that a lot of children had been coached by their parents. The whole magical thing, they had given them a few lessons, and it wasn't working for them. Because what we wanted was the innocence. And that was really what we found. She was really in awe when she acted. And you could see that moment where she, small girl in stature, actually grabs the brother and hits him on the wall. I mean, that scene was so dramatic, and Roger's still around, actually confessed the first time he was frightened. I was thinking, excuse me. Because he had trained for the fight for 5 weeks. Roger came very lanky. And then one day he came with all these biceps and Roger stay away from me. So it was hard. And then we had to combine that kind of innocence with somebody who knew a bit about it, but not too much. And Emma was very experienced. He had done love brooding in an African force.
Amina Misa.
Enima Misa. She was very, very experienced. And she was excellent. And on set, you could actually think this is the mother and daughter. The way they were kind of behaving and all the rest of it. They were very, very close. And then we had to choose some characters. Neoma Hunter had to come from Ghana. And we had a bit of a tussle with the authorities here. Because there, the unions were very, very strong. And why do you have to go and bring all these people from Ghana when you can find them here? And it was quite a big tussle. Because then I can understand why we should get the people from here. But at the same time, there were certain encomiums. When people know encomiums, when UK raises the glass, we tried it on a couple of people, it just wasn't working. Because that whole thing about people dying and appearing, it's not something which is very common.
Right.
But any Ghanaian knows, someone dies in a village, goes to visit somebody, before they know, he's gone again. And there's this test. They must drink a glass of water. And how you do it was very, very special. And eventually we got our way and managed to bring not just Neoma Hunter, but of course Alexandra Dua. And she was fantastic. The woman was a Aladura spiritual. And we wanted somebody who understood that whole ancestral thing as well as being a Christian. Sometimes we create a binary between them. This is paganism and this is Christianity. And when you see Ghanaians worship them, they are worshiping Christianity in a very African way. And she conveyed that. And people said, how can you, a Christian person, use these eggs and so on and so forth? And she conveyed it so much that you couldn't see the contradiction. And that, I think, so it was quite. And then there were those ones who had a real kind of Cockney.
What about the choice of Thomas Baptiste, who played the brother?
Thomas Baptiste.
Yes. Again, another.
We had a very interesting encounter with Thomas Baptiste. So in the church where he had died, we actually wanted an open coffin. I think I was overruled. But I went to talk to Thomas Baptiste, and he said, the only reason why you play that role is if we open that coffin and put a piece of onion in it. So, because you're not sure what's in that coffin. I said, it's light. He said, no. From this tradition in the
Guyanese,
yes, precisely. Which was really, really interesting. But we got into that whole fantasy thing because It was part of his tradition. You know, his tree was a bit suspect, so we cut out a few, you know. I'm sure those who,
Getting the accent.
Your mass teach was a Ghana boy. So, you know, we just had to have a very strong Pan-African British cast, but the essence of the story really was very important for them to grasp, or else it wasn't happening.
Now you touched on a few things which we could talk about for the rest of the evening. One is the Ghanaian intricacies. You talked about tree and the different accents of tree, that even maybe some Ghanaians would speak tree differently, which I wouldn't necessarily understand, but you probably would. The other point is that there are some jokes like the water, which Ghanaians would immediately connect with. Was there anything else that you thought was important to the story like that, specifically Ghanaian, that's in the film that maybe people might have missed?
Well, there were so many.
Just one or two.
There's so many
In fact,
jokes.
one.
There were so many jokes in that film, in many ways, in all the kind of interactions, especially, So, for example, when Amma and the mother had actually received this mystery of the prophecy, they were walking home, and they got in. And the thing about Enima was that she was hiding what she did at work.
Or part-time job.
Precisely, because they were middle class and they were a bit down on their luck, so they were trying to. So there's that whole game that a lot of Ghanaians play. You meet Ghanaians 6 o'clock on the tube. They're all there. You see them somewhere else in their suits. They say they are engineers. Anyway, there's so many different jokes that I think were.
Okay, one thing I wanted to pick up on Kwate Nyomu. Of course, this is not the first collaboration with him. You made a film called Waga. And of course, if I might just say, Kwate made a film in 1971 called You Hide Me, which is about the looted property in the British Museum, right? Called You Hide Me. So he's a filmmaker of, some maturity in a way, preceding you or I, in fact. So how did that collaboration come about, and what was valuable of it in it for you?
I think I really attribute my film career to Kwate Nyomu. I was an up-and-coming poet. We Africans always use a lot of visuals and so on. But Kwate is reputed to have been the first African to have used the 35mm camera for a professional. He came out of the London Film School with great honors and so on and so forth. And I learned a lot from him. He learned a lot from me. But I liked his spirit. A crab boy. Okay, really. I spoke to so So the first time I said we're going to do some magic, let's put it in. He speaks like that.
Hooligans of the
understand and so. But the point about Kwate was that he was very curious, he came more or less from slightly older generation of filmmakers. So that gave us a point of an entry. So we made, for example, Waga, African Cinema Now, which again I think we're going to try and bring out of the archives, because that is just a phenomenal film that really captures the essence of African cinema in terms of the exploration of new languages. And one of the real inspiration for Amma was when we saw Yilen at FESPACO.
Yes, and Waga is about FESPACO, the film festival in Ouagadougou. Yeah.
And we saw Yilen, and we just got blown. And Yilen, essentially, is also a very...
That's a film, I'd say, by a Malian filmmaker, Suleiman Cissé, which I think we should all see.
We got really blown. It was a magical realist. You see, being a poet, my visual narrative had to be a bit more poetic, I think a lot of the first generation, if they don't mind me, so I've been a bit pedantic in terms of the film style, and again, the London context was very important. You know, African Dawn, Africa Center, Ruby knows we did an exhibition in 1991. You know, there was a whole black film, Renaissance. With all of us, you are quite an important figure. You're asking me questions. Anyway, we'll do it. And so we were more or less very excited about magical realism. We're friends, writers. Ben Okri handled it with the literature thing. We did the Famish Road and won the Booker Prize. You know, we had a great laugh, a cheer about it. But in terms of the whole magical realism thing, I mean, the real champion was Dambuzo Machirera.
From Zimbabwe, Zimbabwean writer.
You right about Blank Starlight and so on. So we're all like great stories about all of that, which I won't bore you with. But we're kind of young, uppity, audacious, and just wanted to do stuff. And we did stuff, you know. So we said, okay, we want to make a film, we want to go to Wagga. The whole story about Wagga is a whole different ballgame. We didn't even have money for airfares. I don't know how we got to Accra. We went to the film school, got a couple of guys who could shoot. We put them in a jeep. We drove all the way to Ouagadougou. You know, a bridge collapsed as soon as we crossed. We got to Ouagadougou, got arrested by Kampori men. Sankara heard about us and released us, and then that same night we saw Yilen. Basically, you can go anytime. Amen. So let's make something. Let's make something. So me too, right? I put a few notes down. But I must say, Amma would not have been possible without the opening in Channel 4. And if Rod is here, anybody is here, let's just say
one of the commissioner editors.
Rod Stoneman and Alan Fountain. And they were genuinely interested in opening the doors, new voices, British cinema, you know. And the whole workshop system, even though we have Black Audio, Sankofa, and Patti was friends with Cinema Action, so that's where we went. And we were so excited and learned a lot. There was one guy there, German guy, cinematographer called Schlacker. And he had made a film, wonderful film called Rocinante. And I love Schlacker. No nonsense German guy, he had a ruler. If you say something you don't understand, just push you a little bit. But great guy, you know. And we learned a lot, you know. We learned if you're arguing too much, they'll give you a little more. We'll see. So all of that really was important in shaping this kind of film. But I would also say the spiritual part of it was really for my mother. That I must. Yeah, she was in
a sit-down cameo.
Yeah.
I was
wearing
also
a pink dress.
I was also in the film as a cab driver.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention it.
Yeah.
I lost my locks anyway. But it was really exciting, and I mean, we don't know how much it means to us. I think we're running out.
Yeah, okay. I want to put it out for some questions. We have one question in front here and one at the back. Any more? Two questions, one at another at the back, a third one. Let's take those three. Let's start. Yes, first. Yes.
Hello. Hi. My name is Michelle.
No, hold on a moment. Yeah, we'll come to you in a moment. Let's start here. No, you go on. You go on. Yes.
Hello. My name is Inabong. I'm Dr. Okokon. And when I saw that film in '91, I was with my partner, who's English, and we were so actually transformed by it that he said, when we have a daughter, we must call her Amma. And the spirituality of that film is carried on. And in that daughter of mine, she's now a teacher of drama. And so she took that spirit, because it said at the very beginning, she was special.
Yes.
And I wonder if you still feel, do you feel the spirituality of your I know your ancestors are from South Africa, but we, most of the Bantu sort of circulated all over the continent. So most of our African spirituality has come together.
Very strong.
So because you're now a coach, and I'm so impressed with that, because now my son's doing that. And he's called Kwame. I just was wondering how it's affected your life further on, and also film-wise. I know you mentioned the German cinematographer. When I started getting involved in film, we were concerned that we had such a low level of the backroom people in our African and Caribbean productions. We made lots of British, especially Channel 4,
Right.
but we still had hardly any. So did we manage to get in those productions that you were involved in any of the backroom people that were from our cultures? So that's not
Okay,
really
we'll pull that from
No,
I don't, let's take the questions and then we'll wrap up with you. At the top here, yes?
Thank you. My name is Michelle. I'm an editor, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I have to say, Georgina, I love that dress. I'd love to know where that's from. It's beautiful. But that's not the official. The question is, what stood out to me watching this film at a time where everyone's talking about AI is the size of the computers in that film. And you said up there that you've recut it and reissued it for the digitalised age, and I'm wondering what you did to make it relevant to the digitalised age, because those computers, really.
Thank you for that. That's a nice wrap-up question. We'll come to that. We have one more at the back here, please. And I think that will be all. We'll just go back here and then we'll come. Yes, sir.
Hi, Crazy. I just wanted to ask you what you were doing now and how people here can support you.
What are you doing now and how we can be supported? That's your question? Okay. Okay, let's start with Georgina first. How did the impact, is that was your question, right? On her? Yes? And then we'll end with Chris.
So obviously being African, spirituality just, it ran throughout my home. So one of the things which I really enjoyed seeing is the libation. My mum's not here anymore. So just seeing some of our cultural traditions and our rituals that we keep. I remember my mum doing libation all the time, and I was like, oh, Mum. Yeah, but I remember her doing it and just giving thanks to our ancestors and then praying. So it was just that fusion again of that Christianity and then African culture and traditions is so important. And I think one of the really important things is that a lot of we are now reclaiming those parts of ourselves as well now, and I think that is so important. That links in a lot with my work as well. I work with a lot of high performers and black creators and professionals, and one of the things that I use a lot in my work is ritual. And metaphor and symbolism is really strong in my work. And when I was just watching the film, I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And I saw the heart. I'm not sure if that was on, was that Grenfell Tower? Did everybody observe that? That was in, I can't remember. Was it Trading Towers?
That was actually a new shot we put in tribute to Glenfell. Yeah.
So, in response to what's new, yes.
We saw that Trading Towers on the 27th. And when I came back and heard about the tragedy of Glenfell, I thought, what would have happened if that fire had broken when we were filming it? So we went back to West London and filmed those towers again. But luckily, they had put those green hearts on them as a tribute.
Yeah.
So it was just God sent, and we just put them in this film.
Yeah.
Any other new aspects in response to, I think, the question on there, yes? Yeah.
I think the whole technology thing is really important, and why it's relevant is the same thing. I mean, there was this big debate in Ghana about ancestors contacting us by computer disk. No. It's too much. So I simply said, if for example I die now, I'm an ancestor, I know everything.
That's part of what you're doing.
And that is one. This one we call it My Beautiful African Wedding. That's a commercial, crazy,
Yes.
Afrofuturist, magical, whatever you want to call it. And the music is just Afrobeat, Bernard Moore, boom, like that. Basically. Because that is also transformed our world in many ways. At our time, our sons, daughters were free in school to be called Africans.
That's right. This was another point.
When Better Boy did a concert in wherever, I was on the train, and all these people were, you know, everybody for your great fast, and I'm thinking, and we're proud to be Africans.
Yes.
You know, in those days, if you go to a club and, you know, you're talking that, you're not going to get far with Tracy, are you? You know, but it's changed completely.
Yeah.
So that is a whole commercial thing too. I'm working on the 80s, a documentary piece. There's so much happened in the 80s, which I don't think is going to happen again. You know, the whole Black British Renaissance, really, we all came from that. You know, all these people now, with all due respect, I mean, you know, we've united, queens, kings, James, what have you, and all the rest of it, but nobody's asking, where are these people coming from? Where's Sonia Boyce coming from? Where's Akumfra coming from? Where all this, you know, and they've been united and moved, what is it? So I think that is one. Okay. And then somebody said, well, just meet me in a bar, you know, and write me a check.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much. Also, we see there's another screening of Amma sometime later in October.
It's the 1st of October, I hope.
At the cinema.
At the Real Cinema.
The Real Cinema, yes. So it will be screened, so please get the word around, and we look forward to more digital responses to outsized computers.
Movie is very important. You know, it's not only for Africans, but it's important for a relationship, you know, of family, value.
Now you were in the movie in the very beginning part of it. Watching the movie, how real is it to the life of Ghanaians that were in the UK back in the 80s, 70s?
Well, I came and opened the movie by playing the horn, you know, and asking everybody attention. The movie was watched by silent audience, so silent you could hear yourself breathing. I've never seen a movie like that. I've never been to a cinema to watch a movie that the audience was so silent. This movie made it.
Thank you. So I have here a very beautiful sister. What's your name, please?
Sally Nkrumah.
Sally Nkrumah. Oh, you Ghanaian?
Indeed.
Okay, so what did you make of Amma the movie?
I absolutely loved it. It's my first time of seeing it, and I love the spiritual side of things and how it related to my part of London, because I'm actually from where most of it was shot. I love the new digitalisation, adding in things to do with the Grenfell, and yeah, I thought it was amazing how it kind of depicted a lot of our experiences as British Black Africans in the UK. So yeah, wonderful.
Well, thank you for talking to me. Have a good evening.
You too.
Take care. Bye. Think about the movie.
Oh my goodness. You go.
I go, okay, so what's good? Well, the thing is that I never saw a movie like this before, you know, and that surprised me about in a positive way, so I'm glad that I came.
It was out of this world, and you know, that's the cornerstone of the life that we live in this system with the status quo. That means that all those things like Wakanda, Amma, there used to be which dancers from South Africa came here with the snake, like Ipi Tombi, you know, because when Kwesi said that this was the base of when we start writing our own story now in our words, you know what I'm saying? It's all the basis of, like my friend said, people who go, they come back, and when something is finished, then it's starting. It's a cycle, you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a cycle. The
favorite part is hard to say because I'll say seeing the old London, early 90s London was very interesting, and the carnival. Like, it was a different energy than now. It was more calmer, still a lot of people, but just the old school, the fashion, the 90s, early
The fashion was really
early
nice.
hip hop. Yeah, early hip hop because I'm a musician as well. So yeah, because I was younger at that time, so obviously it's like reliving that time by watching the movie pretty much. So it's like a time capsule and you've gone back in time, you know. And life was just simpler, you know. I love it, you know, and it's timeless. So big up to Mr. Kwesi, you know, much love and respect. This is Galaxy Hub. You see, I was a little kid, but here you go now. You know,
There you go now, big man now.
Give thanks and praise to
Give
the Most
thanks.
High.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Watching it didn't feel like it's a 30-year-old movie. It actually felt quite modern, apart from the discs and the computers. You know, yeah, if you get a chance, definitely go and watch it. Enjoy me next week for more African Vibes with Princess Sequoia.